Hi. So during this quarantine, you know, people have been recommending all over the place to watch the Tiger King documentary. So I finally did, and let me just I can't recommend it because it's like there's a whole lot of like animal abuse and vulgar language and like there's a whole bunch of stuff in there that's not really appropriate. Um, but I mean, I can't like I said, I can't stop you. But if you're some of my younger students, like don't watch it without your parents' permission. Like, do not. Um, but I was looking at it not for the drama, but from a biologist's point of view. So, I mean, you can say all you want about like the people themselves. They're really just, they're in it for themselves, essentially, like every single one of them. Uh, and and I'll tell you why. And it hit me, at the end, where they talk about how like the estimates of how many tigers are in the population in US in captivity and then how many tigers actually exist in the wild. And that is a really, really important point, because there is something in wildlife biology, ecology, conservation biology, that's called minimum viable population, or MVP. So they're, I mean, in this case, MVP is not a very good acronym, but what that means essentially is how many individuals within a population um, it takes to sustain that population without becoming extinct due to inbreeding or um, due to like natural disasters and things like that. And there are like there's biologists. What we do for just this is real simplified. What we do is we take a lot of data. We take a lot of data, and then we create this math equation. So we take, like, think about the algebra, you're taking now, and just add more variables than just X and Y. And, you know, they run it through a program that will run this mathematical calculation, thousands of times. Um, they could run it for 1 million times if they had enough powerful computer or enough time. And then they record the percentage rate of how how many of those runs where the population survives extinction. So uh, one of the notable species actually is cheetahs. Cheetahs are getting really, really close to that minimum viable population, um, if they're not already below that. Um, and, you know, there's other animals that are really, really close, such as the giant panda from China and Southeast Asia. Um, and at the end of this documentary, they were talking about how we have an estimate between 5 and 10,000 big cats, especially, or just, no, just tigers, 5 to 10,000 tigers in captivity, whether it's in a zoo, whether it's privately owned, whether, it's kind of, in a zoo that's privately owned zoo where they take care of them, or a wildlife refuge, or whatever it is, um, and that there's only 4,000 left in the estimated 4,000. They're really hard to catch on video. Um, there's only 4,000 in the wild, and so why does that matter in the context of like what we've been talking about with genetics and heredity? And so the big problem with that is that the whole documentary, uh, moving aside from the drama, is that these people have been breeding their own within their own small populations. So he may, this person may have like 20 or 70 big cats, but 20 of those might be tigers. And so they're having like this limited gene pool, okay? And, a lot of them will breed for white tigers, which is, their white tigers are extremely inbred to the point where they more and more common, they have genetic defects. Um, and I mean, they can't survive in the wild anyway. Being white tigers, they can't camouflage. And so, um, I mean, they have like a very, very limited gene pool. Like 5 to 10,000 is small, is too small anyway. Um, and zoos, accredited zoos, usually when they have a breeding program for endangered species, they usually exchange um, individual animals, so that they can prevent inbreeding, but it doesn't entirely circumvent that process, because there's not enough individuals incoming to the population, uh, because these individuals are endangered. And, once they grow up in captivity, they usually can't be released back into the wild. So it's like there's like an ethical question of like, are we really doing, the right thing by breeding them in captivity and trying to, save the species? And so the genetic population in the wild of tigers, at least, is potentially healthier than the population of tigers in captivity that we have now. And that's really strange to think about when you're looking at a tiger in a zoo, because you're excited, you're like, oh my god, big cat, he's so fluffy, I want to pet him. But in reality, it's like, oh, he can't return to where he's supposed to be, or he's gonna be in this for the rest of his life. um Sometimes they're used for entertainment. And I mean, so because of this documentary, they're making the U.S. Fish and Wildlife is uh, trying to pass the Big Cat Safety Act. And I'm not sure what all that entails. Probably something to do with banning private ownership of big cats and making sure that zoos, the accreditation for zoos, meets a certain standard for housing big cats in their facilities. And obviously the ethical treatment of animals. And it's and it was very interesting from a biologist's point of view, because that very last statement, like, I don't care what happens to all of these people, like, I don't care, they're not great people, none of them are truly great people, but who is like totally innocent. But the last statement about the populations of tigers really hit me. And I actually went to school to college with um, a girl named Courtney Dunn, and she graduated from UCA with her master's degree, and she actually did her project on the differences in like audio communication between male and female tigers to see if the communication between male tigers and male tigers was different than male tigers and female tigers, and whether that communication between male and female tigers was different during during like their heat cycle, what is commonly referred to as being in heat. And she actually did find some statistical difference. Now her sample size was a little low because it required her to travel a lot. She was being there. She had to be there to record these guys live, and she's now working on her PhD, and she's actually in a documentary, I think, or they're making one with her in it, and I think that's pretty cool. And that could potentially save uh, some, I guess. Like it depends on, you know, whether or not it's being used in a facility where the the individuals can be released back into the wild ultimately. Um, so, um, enjoy tigers at the zoo as much as you can. Enjoy them. They're pretty to look at. They're really big, terrifying animals to get close to. I have been close to some, and it's kind of scary. Like they're beautiful and they're so cute, and I want to hug them, but I know that they could. It only takes 2 seconds to for me to not exist, or to only exist as a prey item. So, uh, but I want you to keep in mind that in zoos, even really nice zoos um, that are trying to participate in these breeding programs, their efforts are limited. I'm not saying they're futile or all for nothing, um, but like just because of these numbers with the animals that are already endangered, it's limited in what they can do. And I hope we can hope that it changes. I hope that it sort of inspires some of y'all to maybe work on that one day. That would take a lot of work. It would take a huge team of people, but it it'd probably be worth it to save something um, that pretty, right? So, I was just thinking about that. Yeah, those are my personal thoughts for today while I'm holed up in my room. And I guess I will stop talking at you now. So, this is Miss V signing off.